Howdy, this is Sailor the Piperman, Piper the Sailorman coming late and it's 4 o'clock in the morning on the new year. And I was asleep, woke up into my sleep. I had a dream that I was still doing something that I was doing before I became a tobacconist. First of all, there's no such thing as a one world order. There isn't just one person on top controlling things and giving out orders and telling everybody else what to do. It doesn't work that way. It works more like a matrix. How do you know? Sailor man. There was a time I was into executive body protection. I was working for, at that time, I don't know what it is now, Morgan Trust or Morgan Chase, Chase Morgan Trust. It was a merger between Morgan and Chase. At the time, they needed executive body protection. I just come out the military. It was hard for me to find a job. And that's what I knew. Your reconnaissance, any small arms fires, intelligence gathering, all the things necessary for that particular job. This is what I mean. So, in North Carolina, just right outside of Jacksonville, there were two security body protection, executive body protection firms that were hiring. I knew somebody that were looking for men, so-called integrity, men with the expertise, that are able to work as a group. And so since I was part of a group, I was the 2nd Recon, 2nd Med Battalion, 2nd Mardiv, and set sail with a 24-mile unit, Marine Amphibious Unit. In 2nd FSSG, I came across a lot of individuals that were seeking to get out and do their own thing and set up their own companies. And by that time, they were in the know-how. And said they wanted me on board. So, one company, I'm not giving you the total name, but I'm gonna say this. Listen up. I'm gonna give them abbreviations. Well, one company named HAL, HAL, took my resume. There was a group of us that met at a motel. Right outside of Jacksonville, in Oslo County. Well, we went in there, they reviewed it. I was highly recommended. They'd say if I'd be willing to go to one of their schools to get more training as an executive body protection. But they wanted me for a specific job. That's special intelligence. gonna get to what that is. So they gather us. There was another company that I then worked afterwards, but that other company I was part of the banking system. They were part of the banking system, protecting bank executives. But how? Have something else. Working for actual corporations that were part of the matrix, part of the Club of Rome. I don't know if you know that in Rome there are more than 6 different banks. And I don't know if you ever noticed how all the politicians go see the Vatican. They visit the Vatican. You ever wonder why? You ever wonder what the heck goes on? That whether you're Arab or religious leader or what have you, you go see the Pope, you go to the Vatican. It comes to money. Goes to money. So the dog's excited. The cat. So you have you have that part of the matrix, the Club of Rome. The other matrix is the International Monetary Fund, which is connected to the United Nations and all the different tentacles in different countries involved with the United Nations. But the driving force in all this is money. Making money, spending money, acquiring money, money and power. So the company I was with, Morgan Trust, or it was called Chase Manhattan Morgan Trust, something like that. It was a huge merger in the 80s. They were bringing on a lot of executives. So my job, when these executives travel to all these different economic summits, they all go there protected. So I was part of the forward team. Let's say Morgan J Trust or MetLife Insurance, they're going to be part of an economic summit. Well, certain things have to take place before these people, executives, actually go to those countries. And one is forward surveillance, intelligence gathering. So they would put people like me on the ground floor, working hand in hand with Interpol or whatever law enforcement agencies exist there. Let's say if we're going, it was in France, I would definitely be working with Interpol. If I was Spain, have their own system, but they're also connected. The Italians have their own La Policía, plus other agencies, Turkey, that work hand in hand, give us an information of the different groups that oppose the meetings, whether political, whether terrorist groups. And our job in that city is to neutralize, by any means necessarily, any acts of terrorism, and to decipher misinformation, give misinformation, so these groups would know how the executives were getting there, what routes, what charter planes, executive. So we had a secure route from the airport to where it was going to be and control the environment. The whole thing, our point was to control the environment and not let it be known. Be undercover. So we wore suits, and once we did the groundwork, we had to lay out. We did the logistics, was feed the back the information. So we were Group Charlie. You're forward. That message would go to Group Bravo, which would be those guys that were the actual protecting of the individuals en route, and you had Alpha, those from the beginning. They had to access everything, the gold, and the Secret Service was a lot like that. As a matter of fact, one of the training I took, Secret Service people had to take. By the way, to get in, you had to be bonded, and you have had security clearance while you were in the military. So if you think you're gonna get involved with these people and they're not gonna know every nook and cranny of your life, you're sadly mistaken. So our team, we worked together, assessed the situation, forward observation, intelligence gathering. We neutralized whatever situation. My part never got violent, but we neutralized using whatever law enforcement agencies there to hold certain people in prison while this conference was going on. And that was my job. And during that job, that led to other jobs. And one of the jobs was to protect the executive floors in a bank. I'm not going to say because it could be somebody still in the banking system. The corporate people, CEO, XO, for management or no. Anything that had to do with the making money, distribution of money. Anybody that had great information, you had to protect those floors. This happened in New York. I can tell you what, some prominent families were knee-deep involved in the banking system matrix. So I had the night shift. I had to go out with a group, check for bombs, because you had what's called at the time desktop publishers that would come in at night, do the work at night. So that bank was run 24/7. You had old people there. So in the process of me protecting, I had to go to executive suites. And in executive suites, they had all their personal stuff out. And so if you're into intelligence gathering, you easily can assess where they lived based on the pictures, based on if they were a Met fan, if they were, you see their diplomas, you knew what business school they graduated from, you know what law school they graduated from. And the kind of people that banks hired, they had the oil division, they had the geological division where you had people working from the banks that were actual expert scientists, geologists. And the banks, in turn, worked hand in hand with the oil company, Exxon, Sunoco, big Mobil. So I happened to go into one of the guys' room who was the XO geologist. Had his own company. He was working with the banks. Banks were giving out loans to companies that were doing offshore drilling. When I went into his room, I started looking around, I started assessing, and I saw a map And on that map, you had every single, it's a huge map, like the atlas of the whole world. You know, when the planet is stretched out, you have an atlas. Every single existing oil deposit, fossil fuel, whether it was in the ocean or on land, he had dots on them. Those in prior operations, and those that were going to be future, those that were these little flags you would put on the atlas. Those that were in operation had green flags, and those in the future had red flags. Offshore, off islands, I can tell you, the fossil fuels everywhere. I got to see he was a geologist, and he worked. Before then, he had some awards from a previous oil company, and so that was the way me doing personal assessment. Oftentimes they had the records of the previous meetings, which was illegal to look at. But I wanted to know what the heck was going on, why some prominent families in the U.S. were involved. Those were shareholders in banks. You can see how a bank can go from a small bank, have shareholders, banks loan out money to oil companies, lend out money in Hollywood to make a film, lend out money to the military, lend out money to mega churches. So what drives the world is money. And those that empower the International Monetary Fund have great influence in the banking system in the Vatican, have great influence. Anyone that sits on the board of directors of the International Monetary Fund has got a lot of weight. And if you do the research, you're going to realize how much a country has influence. Politics is a way of, it's part of the matrix. I'm just going to ask you a question. You buy a house, you got to pay a mortgage, you got to pay closing. Most people have to go to the bank, have to sign a contract, pay the bank whatever. So what ends up happening, you spend a quarter of your life paying back the company, paying off the mortgage. This is my question. Do you own the home? Give you a piece of paper. You feel great about it. But do you really own it? Or can somehow, some way, that property be taken from you? Who still has their hands on your property after you pay your mortgage? The government? The banks? You gotta pay your annual tax, right? Right? If you're dealing in a capitalist society run by Wall Street, run by international, the banking companies, enhance. You know, I always wondered, how is it that a president can call the bank and shut down all their resources of another country or other individuals in another country, like the Federal Reserve, FDIC. when I was engaged in an operation in Panama, before we do that, we needed to incite a riot. So what did? Shut down the banks. Nobody can get money out. Nobody could put money in. That wreaked havoc on the dictator that was there. Once that happened, it gave us excuse to the U.S. government to go in there and interfere with whatever policies were in place that were not in favor to our national interest. So, life is chess. There are two opposing forces. One good, humanitarian good, and one bad. All this is taking place in the spiritual realm. And the scripture clearly says, our fight and our warfare is not with flesh and blood, but principality in high places. So you need to ask yourself, what draconian people, serpentine people work in these places are in charge, and for what purpose are the world's being manipulated, given misinformation. The world's lied to by everybody. So, Miguel, how did you free yourself from that? The Bible. The answer to free yourself from the matrix is the Bible. Understand that this has been played over and over and over for thousands and thousands of years to the very beginning. Somebody wants to control the earth, govern out certain forces, people, minions, people that are willing to do. And let me tell you something. Behind all these are Satanists that want to do evil. They want to be in power. They call it the left-hand path. You might have heard of that. Some people in the know, some people not in the know. They're not known as Satanists, but they're being used by evil. These old scriptures says Nimrod was the hunter of men. Well, we had a president, Obama, who was also the hunter of men. Who's still actively taking part. You're wondering who killed John F. Kennedy? Then you have to go to the Federal Reserve, International Monetary Fund, Joint Chief of Staff, those that wanted the Cold War to continue, those that were using heroin and drug to make money. We put out of Afghanistan. Now, people don't know, Afghanistan, many of our generals were involved in the heroin trade, both in Vietnam and Afghanistan. They weren't born way back to look at all this stuff. There were portions in the military, most of the people that I was were dead. They had understanding that America, the FBI, poured millions and millions of dollars of heroin in the inner city using mafia and underlings who do their bidding. If you want to know more about this, got my email, Ras Miguel, R-A-S Miguel, 55@gmail.com. I just had to put this out there. Remember, fear is the mind killer. He that controls the spice controls the universe, rules the universe. And how the banking system, and who's on top of the banking system? Money, the God. You cannot serve mammon and serve God. This is Sailor the Piper Man, Piper the Sailor Man. Just sharing some things with you. Remember, life is a chess game.